Okay, now that we created our very first CMS collection, you're going to notice that the CMS collection is going to appear here on the top left-hand corner. And once you click on it and select it, you're going to essentially see this view right here. So first of all, you can create some sample items. So you can simply add some default items which you can then customize, but this is going to essentially give you a heads up and start designing and structuring these faster. You can also create them manually. So in this case, I can create a new blog post by clicking over here. And then of course, I'm going to go through the entire structure that we selected and created in the previous video. So I'm going to need to add name, slug, body, so on and so forth. And of course, I can always edit the settings. So I'm going to go over here, save changes, and I'm going to be redirected to the collection fields where I can modify these elements. So nothing that we do in the previous step is going to be fixed. Everything can be edited and adjusted on the go. So it's quite flexible in those regards. Now, as we go back into the collection field, you're also going to notice a few different items over here, and we're going to create some sample items just so that you can see them in action. The very first one is going to be the search field, which should be self-explanatory. You can essentially search for anything which is related, or any blog post in this case, which are related to the search query that you're adding. You can also filter. So you can filter by status. So any post which has been set to published, or any draft, schedule, or even archived elements. You can also decide in a much more granular way if you just want to show, for example, the published post in the last 24 hours, 7 days, or even the last month. And the same also applies for posts that you created or modify. So the filters are quite in depth. Always reset them to the default by clicking on reset. Now, another option which is quite often useful is the select. So you can actually multi-select and then bulk update. So for example, you can export, you can delete the items which are selected, or even just update the items. So for example, you can stage them for publishing, you can publish them, save them as draft, or archive and unpublish. So that's another thing to keep in mind. As well as the fact that you can export in one single click all of these items as a CSV. And on the same fashion, you can also import multiple blog posts in the format of a CSV. So this is going to be really useful, especially if you have a lot of blog posts already. You can literally create a CSV file, and then to each column, you're going to essentially match the different custom fields. So for example, in one column, I might have the name. In another column in the CSV, I might have the slug. In another column, I might have the post body. And be sure to name the top columns so that when you do this import, you're essentially going to be asked to match the columns with the right data formats. So it's very easy, it's very visual, and it allows you to bulk upload many blog posts, or just generally speaking, CMS collection items in a very fast and efficient way. On top of that, there is, of course, the settings right here, which essentially brings you back to the editor. So that should be fairly straightforward. And the very last item that I wanted to mention is the pin. So you can actually go ahead and pin by certain columns. So you can add, for example, the item ID over here, and you can add the post summary. So these are essentially the CMS items options which you selected. So this entire section is highly customizable based on your specific needs and what you want to see right away. So we're going to continue in the very next video.